So this sector is actually all about data storage, not the most sexy data topic you can talk about. Data storage, most people think about disks and stuff like that, hardware. But the world's changed quite a bit, and it will continue to change quite a bit in the world of data storage. And there's two layers to it, if you like. There's the physical layer, the actual equipment it sits on. Not going to talk about that today. But this is more about understanding the logical data structures, the actual sort of structures within which you store data. And you're all using data storage tools right now. It depends how in depth you get, but things like SharePoint and those sorts of tools that help you organize and structure documents or data that you've got, they're pretty commonplace. Now, in terms of data storage and from a procurement perspective, clearly all the usual rules apply. You really need to know how much you need, what volumes and forecasts. You need to know, how long you're going to keep things for, and you need to know how quick you need to access it. And armed with those sort of three main attributes, you can probably get yourself a reasonable deal. Data storage over the last 20 years, the costs have come down massively, mainly because technology's got better and better, and you can store more stuff on the hardware. So it's relatively commoditized, but if you need to be a little bit careful, because if you buy cheap and it's not the right thing for your requirement, then clearly it's going to go wrong. Anyway, so three main sort of areas I'm going to talk about here. Databases. Now, for those of you who use Microsoft Excel, that's not a database, okay? People see it as a database because it's easy and it's on their computer. And if you think about it logically, it sort of looks like one. It's an application that's storing data, is presenting it to you in a structured way. Yeah, all right, it's sort of a database. But real databases are bigger, store a lot more information, and tend to do it in a really, really rigid structure. And the most common database is something called a relational database. What that is it basically will set the data up in ways that you can say, right, okay, my name's Phil, my children are these people, my date of birth is this, and it's information linking everything back to Phil. So the relationship between me and other bits of data is key. That's held in what they call tables. And I'm not going to get into any depth on that because it's boring as hell, but fundamentally that is a relational database that is structured data in the main. Now, the big players in this world are Oracle, been around since God was a boy, massive, massive company. The owner owns a few Hawaiian islands. They are not cheap, they're not easy to negotiate with, but they're probably the market leader in terms of corporate enterprise databases. They are well known for being very, very difficult to negotiate with. Someone I spoke to the other day called them arseholes. I'm really not allowed to use that word in common, but just so you know, this is just an opinion, not my opinion. But fundamentally, Oracle are the biggest database provider and really good. The products are robust, but they can be a bit expensive. And again, the negotiating style is a bit complicated. Probably equally as broadly used, but maybe not as renowned for its enterprise class, is something called SQL Server, which is by Microsoft. SQL, commonly used phrase in databases, stands for Structured Query Language. It's the language you use to structure queries in a database. Again, I'm not going to get into the detail of that, but Microsoft have their own database product, SQL Server, more cost-effective than Oracle, easier to implement in my view, probably more appropriate for smaller organizations, and obviously, because it's Microsoft, you can buy it in lots of different formats, cloud and all that sort of stuff as well. So that's a fairly common one. And then Oracle have also got a slightly lighter touch database product called MySQL, MySQL. Again, same sort of principles as Oracle, but the terms are a little bit lighter, and it's a smaller database engine, again, primarily focused on smaller applications. They are your main structured or relational database products in the market. There are lots of other sort of slightly off-piste, unstructured databases. They hold data that, things like web pages, documents, but in a way that you can run queries against them and get information back. And probably the biggest one on the market at the moment is something called Mongo, M-O-N-G-O, MongoDB, and that is an unstructured database that stores unstructured things like loads of text, those sorts of things in a very efficient way, and you can again run indexes on it and do some clever things to make it easy to access the data. Database is a very technical discipline. The main thing from a procurement perspective is make sure you understand the terms, make sure you understand the technology is going to work. Make sure they understand that the IT guys know what they're doing, and check the costs. Please check the costs, because once you're in a database, it's very difficult to get out. So if you think every application has a database underneath it, we've sort of covered that. The next thing is, what do you do with that data when the application's gone a bit, isn't being used anymore? Let's say you've got an HR system, you're moving from HR system 1 to HR system 2. You still need to either migrate all the data from HR system 1 to HR system 2, or you can move it to what they call a data warehouse. Now, data warehouses are massive lumps of data structured in a way that lots of different applications can dump its data in there, and it makes it easy, like a normal warehouse. It makes it very easy to get hold of that data. So you rock up, you can query your data warehouse, and it'll, instead of having to look at individual applications, it'll look at the data warehouse and it'll give you all the answers it's got out of the data warehouse. They tend to be big, cumbersome, probably not appropriate for things that data you're using every day, but useful for getting a central view of things, and also useful for building a single place to go for lots of different types of queries. So data warehouses are complicated, not for everyone, but worth investing in if you are changing data quite a lot, and therefore you're changing applications quite a lot, and you need a common place to store data. Big products that are relevant to that: Snowflake, massive company, recently IPO'd. They are primarily cloud-based, so they store all of your data in the cloud. Oh, hang on a sec, I'm going towards the beach. So being in the cloud clearly comes with all the risks we previously discussed about. Is your data secure? Is it going to the right places? Is it contained? But Snowflake have got a very strong proposition, and pretty much, I would say, the brand leader in this space. You've also got some specific cloud-based products in the cloud providers. So Amazon have got Redshift, similar sort of to Snowflake, probably not as functionally rich. And Google have got BigQuery. Again, the same principles apply. It's all in the cloud, and you store your data in a structured form, and then you can ask it questions. And then the final, probably more basic layer for data storage is basic cloud storage. Now, very similar to you having a hard disk on your computer, you can buy disk space in the cloud. And there are lots of different ways of buying disk space in the cloud. So instead of you storing it in your office or on your servers, you can store it in the cloud. And that cloud storage is accessible over the internet. All the usual cloud rules apply. The thing to bear in mind here is, because of the way the hardware in the cloud world is structured, and there's previous videos on that, you're dumping your data into a big shared device. And Amazon or Google or Microsoft are sharing that device across multiple people. So things that they need to think about, and therefore you need to think about, is if you're storing stuff in the cloud, how quickly do you need to get hold of it? How much have you got? Is it something that you're going to use once every 5 years? If it's used every 5 years, work with your provider to say that's what your requirement is, and they will suggest the most cost-effective way of you storing that information. And the reason is because if you need it within a second, it's really expensive. If you need it within 5 years, you could actually technically print it off and put it in a warehouse for yourself, or you could keep it in the cloud, and Microsoft or Amazon or Google could do the same thing themselves, and they store it in what they call glacial or long-term storage, not very performant, based on old technology, but it's cheap as chips. Now, in cloud storage terms, the leaders really are obviously your main cloud providers, so Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Amazon have got a product called S3. They've got plenty of other offerings around it, but that's really where all the storage is held in Amazon. Microsoft have got something called blob storage. Love the word blob, makes me smile. Microsoft blob storage is the same sort of thing as S3. It allows you to just dump all your data in a big blob and then pull it back when you need it. And Google have got plenty of cloud storage options as well. But the key thing for cloud storage is, are you breaking any laws by putting your data in the cloud? How quickly do you need access to it? And also, it's generally charged per gigabyte or per terabyte. So how much are you going to put in there, and make sure you understand the commercials around what you buy. Data storage tools, there's hundreds of them. I could cover it all in 3 days of filming on the Solent. But the general principles are: what sort of data are you looking to store? How much data are you looking to store? How often do you need to access it? How long do you need to keep it? If you're armed with those sorts of things, you'll be able to negotiate reasonable commercials and get the right product And just bear in mind that some of the bigger vendors, like Oracle, are quite difficult to deal with in some cases, and therefore you need to make sure from a negotiation perspective, you've got a bit of a plan as to what you're going to do if they say no.